Give me a sec. Let me make sure. Oh, here we go. Let's make sure the thing's actually streaming first. I'm watching myself talk, but I got to make sure it's muted or else it'll be very chaotic. Oh, wait a minute. Said live, but suddenly mine says session ended. Hang on. Cool. Okay. Yep. I'm assuming hang on. It's still saying session ended. Am I actually still live? Okay. Cool. All right. Refresh the page. Okay. Cool. All right. Let's without further ado, let's get started. Cool. Okay. So, hello everybody. It's nice to see you all. I hope you're having a fantastic mobile DevOps summit with Bitrise so far. It's great to be lucky number one just after the keynote. I hope the keynote was very good. My name's Tim Oliver, and today I'll be talking about getting started with Fastlane Swift. This is something I'm really excited about. This is a thing I've been playing with for about a year now. I think it's the kind of thing that not a lot of people know about, but it's an insanely powerful tool. So hopefully today I can get you a bit more excited about Fastlane Swift. And hopefully if you're looking at this kind of thing for your own projects, hopefully this will give you a bit of a kickstart. Okay, so who am I really quickly? I'm from Perth, Australia, but I'm currently in Tokyo, Japan. Japan's lovely right now. It's getting colder and colder, and we're just entering autumn now, so it's a fantastic time of the year here in Japan. My hobbies are video games and singing. This probably explains why I'm in Japan to begin with. Certainly, I'm potentially doing karaoke with my team after this, so that's one of the great things about Japan. I've been doing iOS development since 2013 full time. Before that, I was a web developer. But when the iPhone 3G came out, I was really excited at the concept of iOS being this mobile computer, always in your pocket with internet. I thought it was the future back then, and I still believe the same thing now. It's been fantastic doing iOS for such a long time. Before my current company, I was working at Realm in San Francisco, which is a mobile embedded database as an alternative to SQLite, which is a fantastic product if you haven't checked it out already. And before my current company, I was working at Drive Mode, which is a subsidiary of Honda, where we were building Bluetooth-enabled apps for Honda motorcycles, which was a huge pivot compared to regular iOS apps I'm working on. And now, at the moment, I still, given recent events, I still work at Instagram. I joined Instagram in February 2022 here in Tokyo. It's been fantastic so far. It's a lovely company, and I have such an amazing team over here, and I love every single day of it. But we're not here to talk about work. I'm here to talk about my side projects and basically what kind of effort goes into my side projects. So, really quickly, my main side project is I'm making a DRM-free comic book reader for iOS. It's a really simple concept. You have a CBZ file, which is just a zip file full of JPEGs. You put it into the app, and it renders the pages like it's a book. So it's just basically a glorified QuickTime player for open source comic book files. And the way this thing is architected is it's hosted on GitHub. The code's private. And I manage all my dependencies in CocoaPods. And here's where it gets interesting. It's localized to 12 different languages. And something I really want to point out just while I've got the chance, a lot of my users don't speak English. Like a lot of my revenue and then the actual user base is coming from non-speaking countries. So if you've been considering, is it worth localizing your app and all the effort that goes into that, which I'll get into later, the answer is definitely yes. And all the effort that goes with it, it's definitely worth it. And then obviously I do a beta testing round and test flight, which is very important because I got a lot of users who like to find, this is a really complicated app and there's a lot of bugs in there, sadly. It'd be great if I had some kind of way to test, like CI test this. And then obviously after that, it goes to the App Store. Okay, so that's an iOS app. The next one's a macOS app that I've been volunteering on lately. This one's called YouTube Music or YT Music. It's a very basic app. It's just basically a wrap-up for the YouTube Music website in a WK web view, so I can keep it as a separate process on my desktop, which is really good for keeping it separate, so I don't accidentally close the tab or anything. It just sits there, and it's been a really good way to just learn how to do AppKit and how AppKit actually is different from UIKit and SwiftUI on iOS. It's a very basic code base, and again, this time the code is hosted on GitHub, and again, the code is managed with its dependencies through CocoaPods. And it's not an App Store app just because it's a very casual indie sort of thing. It's not really a good, big enough app for the App Store, basically. So it's actually released through GitHub releases, which then means in order to facilitate automatic updating, it's done via Sparkle. And Sparkle is a little, it's an open source library that attaches a binary with an XML and RSS feed that keeps track of what the updates is. And when there's an update, it will use that separate binary to update the primary binary. That's a little bit of extra complexity, which I'll get into later. And then finally, I do a lot of open source projects. A lot of these are from iComics, like the components from iComics. And I thought, hey, this is probably good enough for other apps. Let me just put it out there and see if anyone uses it. And these will have their own special release cycle. Things like the code is all open on GitHub, and then not all of them, but ideally, each of them has got the main distribution channels like CocoaPods, Carthage, and now more and more Swift Package Manager. And again, you need to have specific release versions, semantic versioning, to indicate when new bits of code are up. So at the same time, releases are cut and managed on GitHub releases. And managing all of this is really hard, and well, not just hard, but also extremely time-consuming. Things like this is apparently the term for this is called toil, and the idea here with toil is basically it's work that has zero value, but you have to do it every single time you want to cut a new release and put it out there. Some of them are just really time-consuming for little value, like if you manually upload artifacts to App Store Connect, you have to go through the whole process, which is a lot of just waiting, which you can automate this. And then down the line, stuff starts going from like just annoying and time-consuming to straight up not feasible to do on your own. A big example of this for iComics is screenshots. Like I have 12 languages, and then for each of those languages, I need to have 20 screenshots that span each of the device screen sizes. And so when you start looking at that, you're now looking at hundreds upon hundreds of screenshots that need to be automated. That could be automated. It should be automated because that's not doable for one person. And another thing is when you're doing different release channels, it's very easy to forget steps. For example, like I've had the habit of bumping the version number in CocoaPods, but forgetting to bump the same version number in the info plist in the Carthage framework. So sometimes, in order to guarantee consistency, doing this on your own is extremely not recommended. And then as a result of this, all this effort and time and just waiting around, like this really kills your motivation to release fast and often, because usually you'll get into the motivation of like, oh, I don't want to do another app update until I really, really have enough stuff to justify all the time I'm going to have to spend to cut this new release. So I'm sure, so what are you supposed to do, right? What can you do? I'm sure a lot of folks here are aware of Fastlane. Fastlane is a fantastic tool created by some absolutely fantastic folks. For folks who haven't actually heard of Fastlane yet, I'm assuming at this kind of event, everyone knows what Fastlane is, but just really quickly, it's an open source platform. It's a Ruby basic package that lets you perform automated tasks for the most common things you need to do to ship an iOS or macOS app, and I think even other platforms as well. The cool thing about this is it's gone through and looked at all these common steps, things like generating screenshots, signing the binary before you upload it, even uploading it through Apple's official REST API. These are all like boxed into actions that can then be queued up in a specific script file. And the cool thing is you can also add your own actions as plugins as well. And the code that you actually use to control this is done through a Ruby script file called a fast file. And then, as you can see from that screenshot, you encapsulate all these steps in a pipeline called a lane. So in this case, the lane is called App Store. And then all you need to do to execute this is from the command line, just call Fastlane App Store. And just really quickly, I kind of do want to do a shout out because a lot of fantastic folks have worked on Fastlane. Fastlane is an absolute treasure for the Apple platform community. But at the same time, let me just do a shout out to Bitrise as well, because you can't just execute this, you could execute this locally, but having your own actual CI service is way better. And the stuff that Bitrise does, I know Bitrise integrates really well with Fastlane, really shouldn't be understated. So I think for everyone involved in making this possible, please, if you ever see them, please make sure that they know that they're very much appreciated. So thank you very much to everyone involved. But there is one thing really quickly. You have to write the fast file in Ruby, and I'm an iOS developer. I'm an iOS and macOS developer. I sort of know Ruby, but I don't know how to write good Ruby. And the last time I did a similar presentation, people thought I was pooping on Ruby, but I'm not. Ruby's a fantastic language. I live in the country where Ruby was invented. But coming from an iOS and a Apple perspective, it's a really big context shift. Like, it's a scripting language. The IDE is different. You can do it in Xcode, but there's no code completion or static type checking. So going from like Swift and Objective-C to Ruby, at least in my case, is a really big context swap, and it takes a long time for me to do anything I want to do in Ruby. So if we could avoid that, that would be nice. And this came to a head last year when I was trying to work out an automated release a pipeline for YT Music, because that had a lot of extra complexity with things like having to notarize the app through Apple's notarization service. And at the very end, this is the clincher, converting the changelog notes that were in Markdown to XML so they could be put into Sparkle's RSS feed. And so I knew I could do this in like an Apple language, but I had no idea how to convert these two in Ruby. I'm sure it's doable, but that's just a giant context swap and a lot of research I'd have to do for something that doesn't really help me when I'm writing iOS code. And so back in 2017, a lovely guy called Josh Leibowitz announced that he was working on something called Fastlane Swift, and it was currently in beta. And this sounded really, really cool. I was like, I know Swift, I know Fastlane, I wonder what this thing is. And so when I was looking at my options for writing this pipeline for YT Music, I went back and said, give this Fastlane Swift thing a try. I haven't heard much about it in a long time. I think it's still there, but I think it's still there. But let me just have a look. Like clearly, people aren't ranting about this as much as they should be, or like raving about it. Like, where is it? So I thought maybe there's a blocker. Maybe there's something wrong with it. Like, yeah, I was like, this thing looks amazing, but I'm kind of curious. It seems to be really undersold, and I really wish more people knew about it. So I was like, maybe there's something stuck with it. So in the spirit of open source, I will just go forward with it, and if I find a blocker because it's open source, I can figure out how to fix that blocker, and hopefully I can improve the project as long as I go. And so Fastlane Swift is very easy to do. I'm sure if you've actually read the documentation or anything, if you don't even know about it, it's really easy. Like it comes with regular Fastlane. There's no extra steps. You just install regular Fastlane, and then from your project directory, you just say Fastlane Swift in it instead of Fastlane in it, and this will create a Fastlane Swift project instead of the regular Ruby one. And what does that look like? Basically, what it will do is it will create the Fastlane folder as usual, but this time it will create a fastfile.swift file. And then next to that, it'll create a Swift folder. And then in that, as you can see, there'll be a large number of Swift files and an Xcode project. And so what this actually is this is a fully fleshed out Xcode project that you can build and execute. So you can go into that Xcode project, open it up, and you'll see your fast file. And your fast file will have access to all of the Fastlane APIs via all those defined Swift files. So let's see if we can show this in action. Yeah, and so, yeah, that's what it looks like in Xcode. And so what it's actually doing is this is not a rewrite of Fastlane. This is still Fastlane under the hood. What it does is when you hit build, it generates a little runner file, a native Swift file that then calls back to the Ruby Fastlane and executes everything on your behalf. So you get Swift execution that's then calling back and performing all the normal actions in Fastlane Ruby. And the cool thing here basically means is everything that you get in Fastlane, the regular Fastlane, you get for free in Swift. The benefit is that you get all the benefits of Swift as well, which is absolutely amazing. And as you can see here from this screenshot, all the fast file is it's just a class that's being subclassed from lane file, and your lanes are just regular Swift functions. And so as you can see here, if you say function custom lane, and then all you have to do is go into the terminal and say Fastlane custom, you've just executed a fast file, but you've used Swift instead of Ruby. And this is fantastic because you get all the benefits of Swift. You get like static checking. You get actual like build time if you do any like build time compile warnings. You get new features as Swift itself gets better. Like this year, we just got regular expressions. You get the new Swift features as well, and these can be baked, and these are being baked back into Fastlane Swift as well. Another one is you get default parameters for every single Fastlane action. So you get all the niceties of Swift, and the fact that you can actually use it. You can write the code you want in an IDE that you like or you're used to. Yeah, if you like Xcode, it's debatable. And you get basically it's no context swapping at all. It's basically you can write your iOS code or your macOS code. You can also write your fast file in the same language in the same window, and it's absolutely fantastic. But there's one more thing. one more thing that makes it really, really good. This is still in beta though. This is still I had to play with it. I couldn't get it working properly, but it's definitely something that's really, really cool. Is that you can actually integrate it with Swift Package Manager, which means now you can start importing giant dependencies in stuff that wouldn't really make sense, but fitting it into the fast file, you can actually have come in through SPM. This means you could even start looking at things like having a single shared build script that you can then import to specific projects. You're not maintaining separate copies in each fast file. You could have one main set and bring it in. This is still in beta though. I'm still looking into it. It does take a little bit of work, but definitely this is worth checking. Like in YT Music's case, I didn't need to use it, but certainly it's there and it's definitely worth checking out. So yes, this is fantastic. I was like, this is so good. This is so much easier than writing Fastlane fast files in Ruby. I really, really like this, and I hope other people are really excited about this too. But there was a catch after all. There was a catch. So I was like, this might be why no one's really been trying it out. And the problem that Fastlane Swift had was that it really depended on those auxiliary Swift files that come along. So as you can see here, Fastlane Ruby is just a single fast file, sorry. But Fastlane Swift was this giant pile of extra files. And when you're working with a GitHub repository, you try your best to not pollute the history, and all these files just shouldn't be checked in. Like these are automatically generated files. Putting them in is kind of completely unnecessary, and should be avoided. But the problem was, if you try and deleted them and didn't delete the fast file, Fastlane Swift would think that your project's in an inconsistent state and would just throw an exception. And I was like, so this might be the reason why everyone's been defaulting back to Fastlane Ruby. But the great thing is, it's all open source. And so it's like, well, I have a legitimate use case. I want to just upload my fast file, Swift file, and just not worry about the rest. And so let me just file a PR. I can probably just learn just enough Ruby to figure out how to do this. It's basically a matter of checking if the Swift files aren't there and rerunning the initialization script if they're not, and then file a PR. And then the current maintainer, a lovely chap called Josh Holtz, was very kind to quickly tell me that's a fantastic use case. And then he refactored my half Ruby into real Ruby, and then he actually. Whoops. And then, wait, did I skip one? Oh yeah, and then he launched it. And so this came out back in 2.180, which is a little while ago, but it's in the code base. And that right there just shows like the fantastic power of open source as well. Like if you see a problem and you have a legitimate use case for working on it, you can contribute the code and get it into the final project, which makes the whole thing better for everyone. And so finally, the end result is in the YT Music repo, I have just the fast file .swift file. And then every single time I want to do a new release, I can actually run the whole thing through a CI runner, and then the final thing comes out. The final result, the artifact, all signed and notarized, comes out and is uploaded to GitHub releases. So hopefully my goal here was just to give you just enough information to know this exists and it's been tested and it's actually in production right now, and it's all open source. So if you want to go have a look at how this works, just go over to the YT Music repo. I'll see if I can put the link into the chat after I'm done here. And yeah, it has all the steps necessary to take a Mac app from compile to release. So hopefully you can, if you want, just go for broke, copy it, do whatever you want with it, and hopefully that is really helpful to you. So in conclusion, just when you start doing so many projects, like CI becomes just kind of like a no-brainer at the end. Like you end up spending so much more time just repeating the tasks. It makes sense just to automate it once and invest the time once, and then you'll save so much time down the line. Fastlane Swift makes it so much easier for Apple developers who aren't used to Ruby to write really good release pipelines. That makes it so much easier to automate all of your code releases. Open source is awesome. The great thing about this is, like, when in doubt, if you're using an open source product, you can file a PR back to it and make it better for everyone. Please check out the YT Music fast file if you want an example of how this actually works in production. And keep building awesome things, everybody. Once again, thanks to Bitrise, and thanks for your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of the event. Okay, so what do we do now? Do we have some questions? Let's have a look. Does it support using Fastlane Ruby plugins? I don't actually know. I should look into that. If it doesn't, I feel like the way it works under the hood is basically there's a private API where it actually wraps the Swift functions into Ruby commands. So I feel like you could, if it doesn't do it by default, it should be easy enough for you to write your own Swift extensions that then wrap those same methods. So it should, in theory, work, but you might have to do some extra work to actually expose it in the Swift files. But if it doesn't work, or if you want to actually make it automatic, again, like it's open source, you could totally make some kind of runner that automatically generates these bindings for you on your behalf. How can we make Bitrise build faster? You're gonna have to ask Bitrise that one. Oh, apparently we have to go now. Thanks again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the event. If you have any more questions, please send me a tweet. Thanks so much for that.